All right, ready to roll here on the Kaufman Corner podcast. The good doctor, Dr. Rany Jazayerli, Soren Petro with you. We will cover a couple of trades the Royals have made. Jose Cuas, Nicky Lopez are no longer Royals. Did they get enough for them? What did they get? What is the plan? What are some of the comments of the general manager adding up to with the Royals? Several days ago, he talked about wanting major league ready. What does that mean for where they think this ball club is? And is that the right approach? Or is that just a GM saying what he thinks the fans and or owner wants him to say in the midst of a stadium drive? We had an open letter from John Sherman not long ago. Does this jibe with that? We get into all of it right now here on the Kaufman Corner podcast.
You're listening to Kaufman Corner, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Royals, breaking down the Royals like no one else can. Kaufman Corner is hosted by Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro. Rany is a co-founder of Baseball Prospectus, author of Rany on the Royals, and former columnist for Grantland, The Ringer, and The Athletic. Soren is the award-winning afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. Kaufman Corner is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Gann Asphalt and Concrete is now hiring for all positions. Project manager, dump truck drivers, operators, and crew members. Starting pay up to $30 per hour based on experience. With paid time off and insurance, just to name a few of the benefits. Check out GannAsphalt.com for more info. Now, here's your hosts, Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro.
And back at it, the trade deadline. It's everything you thought it could be, right? This is the trade deadline that Royals wanted. Relievers being dealt for fringy major leaguers. Or did you want more, Rany? Let's begin with your initial reaction to what they've gotten done. We've still got, 20 hours or so until the deadline. Your reaction so far is joy? What dare I read from this?
If by joy you mean I'm rubbing my hands at free content for the Kaufman Corner podcast, then yes, joy is definitely an emotion I'm feeling. There is an alternate universe, one in which JJ Piccolo decided to stay in the shadows this week, in which we are having a very uplifting podcast. The Royals having just finished a sweep of the Minnesota Twins, winning 3 games in a row for the first time all season. The latest any team has had their first 3-game winning streak since the 1952 Pittsburgh Pirates, but still, they've won 3 in a row. Bobby Witt's looking like a star. We could be talking about that. We won't be talking about that today because of the actions and words.
Are you going to let it rip once again?
JJ Piccolo. There's only so many times you can wind this guy up before the string rips. I'm trying to be measured here. I don't think we can talk about the Nicky Lopez trade without putting it in the context of the comments that JJ gave to the Kansas City Star earlier this week.
Yes,
we need to start there, and he's, maybe some people are saying his comments are being taken out of context, or at least that he didn't quite mean what the words that came out of his mouth meant. But I just want to focus on the nut sentence here that may go down in infamy, which is this quote here: "When you have guys on major league teams and you're trading them for 3 or 4 minor league prospects and years of control, that's really not the direction we want to go in." That is an amazing sentence, and I'm sure JJ didn't quite mean it like that. And I want to emphasize that if you read through the entire comments, I believe he is referring to trading players who have years of control, as opposed to a reliever in the final year of their contract. He's talking about trading core guys who have years of major league service time still remaining before they're free agents. But then he trades a guy with years of club control remaining in Nicky Lopez, who will not be a free agent for 2 more years after this one. And he doesn't trade him for 3 or 4 minor league prospects or even 1 minor league prospect. He doesn't trade him for a minor leaguer at all. He doesn't trade him for a major leaguer who has more service time than him. He doesn't trade him for a major leaguer who's younger than him. He trades him for a reliever who is older, will also be a free agent after 2 more years, and has had no history of success in the major leagues. If you just knew that, you would say, geez, JJ kind of biffed this one. Then you throw in the fact that Taylor Hearn was acquired by the Braves for cash 6 days before. And I said this on Twitter, it's not the worst trade the Royals have made. Not by far. Nicky Lopez is a valuable player, and we can talk about the value that he brings, because some Royals fans out there are trying to write this off as Nicky Lopez is hitting 210. He's worthless. It's amazing the Royals got anything for him, which is one of the most wrong-headed opinions I've heard in a while. But it is one of the most inexplicable trades the Royals have ever made. And I mean, I've been here a long time. You've been here a long time. I remember coming on 810 21 years ago when the Royals traded Jermaine Dye for Nefi Perez. And I think it was Todd Lebo, before I went on the air, just told me what you told me just now. Life is repeating itself. Rany, let it rip. And I think my first words were, I have never been more embarrassed to be a Royals fan than I am right now. This isn't to that level. Jermaine Dye was a star, and the Royals traded him for a replacement level crappy shortstop because they didn't understand that guys hit better in Colorado than elsewhere. But in terms of being the laughing stock of the league even for just 5 minutes, that's what the Royals were yesterday. They traded a valuable utility guy for a guy they could have gotten 6 days ago. I don't know what more you need to say. I don't know what more analysis you need than that to say they screwed up. Nicky Lopez maybe wouldn't have brought back much, but he could have brought back something. And what really kind of surprises me is the Royals had to know the optics of this would be terrible. They had to know, like, when JJ is talking to Alex Anthopoulos, even if they both agree, this is a reasonable trade value wise, JJ's got to be able to tell Alex, look, the optics are terrible for me. I'm trading for a guy I could have had off a waiver 6 days ago. You've got to make this look better. Throw me an arm in the Dominican, a 17-year-old kid, a pitcher you've already decided is not a prospect. Right. Guy you signed last year, he's already, this guy's not going to work out. Give me a prospect just so we can sell it. So we can say, we got a lottery ticket. And I know it's probably not going to work out. If this had been Nicky Lopez for Taylor Hearn and a pitcher in the Dominican, right now, you and I and everyone else would be distracted by the shiny object over here, the 17-year-old pitcher, and we'd cut them a little bit of slack. The fact that he couldn't even get that strikes me as it's a really bad sign for JJ's negotiating ability. If you can't even negotiate for an optics prospect, a non-prospect, then what are you doing here? Because the fundamental thing about this trade is the Braves needed Nicky Lopez a hell of a lot more than the Royals needed Taylor Hearn. And I don't think JJ ever appreciated that. Nicky Lopez is a phenomenal guy to have on the bench because he's almost good enough to be a starting player. He was good enough one time. He had 300. He was, by wins above replacement, he was a star. But even this year, hitting 210, he's the 5th most valuable player on the Royals by wins above replacement. He is an average player. And yes, a 210 hitter can be an average player because he does all the little things. Well, people are like, oh, he doesn't have value, only hits 210. Get your nose out of a stat book. That's me saying that. And watch some games sometime. Nicky Lopez can play anywhere on the infield. They've auditioned him at first base and the other day, left field and then first base. The first time he's ever played first base, played them flawlessly. He's played 5 different positions this year. He's made 1 error. Defensive metrics routinely have him as an excellent defensive player pretty much wherever he plays. He gets on base. He has a 322 OBP. I think you mentioned it. He's got a higher OBP than Bobby Witt. He's a great bunter. These are little things, but they add up. Add up enough that a 210 hitter can have value. And you know how I know he has value? Because the best team in baseball wanted him. Right? So that's the thing. This notion that the Royals kind of put out that they didn't have any other suitors. Maybe that's true. I don't know all the conversations that they've had. I don't know all the teams they talked to, but the fact that the best team in the sport was interested in him makes me think that one of the other 29 teams, certainly one of the other 18 teams that are still battling for a playoff spot, would have been interested enough in this guy. Maybe you pick up the rest of his salary, the $1 million. You know, I hope that wasn't the issue, the money, but like pick up the $1 million and give him, they get him for free, and they would have given you a lottery ticket, maybe two, maybe something slightly better than a lottery ticket, but something, some player that will actually help you when you're ready to win. Taylor Hearn, even if he's good, even if he magically turns into a Aroldis Chapman, is going to help you in 2024 and 2025 when you're going to suck. So on top of everything else, this makes me think the Royals still have no idea what their timetable is. They still think it's possible for a 32-75 team to somehow contend in the next 2 years, even though that has literally never happened in the history of the sport.
All right, several things here. Number one, JJ Picollo walked back his comments about major league ready players. Now, whether that was just because of the massive backlash that his comments received when he, made you read it off, guys, guys in low A ball versus getting somebody that they can add to their core. And he was questioned about that tonight. They had a Zoom tonight. I was on it, talking about the Jose Cuas trade, and it also became a Q&A about the Nicky Lopez trade, because a lot of us weren't able to be at the ballpark when that, or chose not to. I don't think anyone. If Kaufman's listening, you label it whatever you want. But and so he did walk that back a little bit. He also, I was having a hard time following him. And I got I think, and talking to some other people that were on the Zoom about, okay, what was the takeaway from this? Like Sam McDowell asked to follow up, made it sound as though this was the only offer for Nicky Lopez. Okay, a couple things. One, Nicky Lopez is not the most valuable commodity in baseball. I do want to be clear. I also anticipate that there's going to start to be stories. People within the organization are going to start to say that they were going to DFA Nicky Lopez, right? Which, if you were, why? For all the reasons you said, by one statistical measure, he's the fifth best player on your team. Why are you DFAing him? Of all the people you could DFA, he also made a statement like, when asked, Todd Lebo works with me at 810, asked him, well, a lot of people are asking, why are you making a trade? Why are you trading Nicky Lopez for this guy when you could have just grabbed him beforehand? And he said, well, we didn't have a spot on the 40, which is something that Greg Sharp said this morning on the Border Patrol as well. Well, it's the same spot you traded Lopez for. Now, as you said, it will save $1 million-ish. I mean, if that's where we're at, I would rather, grab him for the cash, spend the extra $1 million, and still have Nicky Lopez to potentially work into a trade, right? That's not managing your assets. It's not managing your resources. And so, listen, Nicky Lopez is not David DeJesus. David DeJesus is a better player. But I said this several weeks ago. Look, Nicky Lopez is going to leave this organization. He's going to have a lot of jerseys. And something I say about a lot of guys. He's going to have a lot of different jerseys in his basement. I think it's going to be a pretty nice basement when his baseball career is over. He's going to play for a number of winning teams because he's exactly the kind of guy that winning teams are looking for a 25th or 26th guy. He's good in clubhouse, does all the little things really well. And so if he's the guy who's giving people a day off 2 or 3 times a week, and I think in a better lineup, his numbers are going to go up. I think with guys on base in front of him, slapping a single with first and second in front of you, it is going to drive in a run.
But by the way,
good hitters behind him as he bats ninth.
Can I interject there?
Yeah.
Honest question. Do you think it's more likely that Nicky Lopez hits better or worse now that he's in Atlanta.
Better.
And before you answer, well, you've answered. Fine. Yeah.
How could
Now,
you not?
well, not only that, he's going to be working with Kevin Seitzer, who in my mind is the best hitting coach in the game. And if you don't believe me, look at the Atlanta Braves lineup. Look at what that team is doing. Every guy who comes through that farm system gets to the major leagues and rakes like pretty much immediately. And just as a reminder, the Royals just traded Nicky Lopez, a middle infielder with a 70 OPS plus, to the Braves, right? Not a great hitter, but a valuable player. Imagine if the Royals had traded, I don't know, let's say a corner outfielder who was not a good defender with a 78 OPS plus to the Braves. Do you think that player would turn it around and start hitting? Because I just described Jorge Soler, who went to the Braves, hit. The Royals traded into the Braves. He hit 269, 358, 524 for the Braves, and then was the World Series MVP. So let's just say this: there is a history of Royals hitters going to Atlanta, starting to rake and finding postseason success. So there is a chance, on top of everything else, that Nicky Lopez might actually carve out such a nice 2 months there that they might keep him around for the next 2 years. Like, this is essentially an option for them. Like, it's an audition. If he doesn't play well, they can cut him. Although what I think is more likely, I think Nicky Lopez knows, like, they're not going to keep him and go to arbitration because his arbitration salary will go up automatically. I think Nicky's a smart enough guy. He's in a winning organization now. Like, he might, rather than risk being cut, he might take a small pay cut in order to stay there. And then the Braves have a really valuable utility guy who can fill in multiple positions for another year or two. Like, he could be a very useful asset for that team. And they gave up like nothing to get him.
I think he's going to get a pay cut because I don't think they will go to arbitration with him, and then he'll be signing. He's probably going to be signing, towards the league minimum, a little bit above, and which is good money if you can get it. And he's going to play for a lot of competitive teams, and so I do wonder, were the Royals asleep at the wheel when the waiver wire came around, and this is them trying to cover, just they missed it. That this guy was there, that he is a guy that they like. I have to wonder it. I mean, I guess you saved $1 million, but you got to know no one's going to claim him. I guess I get to the point. Somebody said, "Hey, Vern, who I respect, Vern, said he's not. Made it seem like, I don't want to put words in Vern's mouth because I didn't hear what he said, but made it seem like he's not a good clubhouse guy, right? Like, I don't know, maybe he's become a malcontent. I don't know. I like talking to the guy. He always seemed like he got along with the fellas, but I'm going to tell you, the worse they get, the less time I spend there. So I will not say that I have a better pulse.
Well, you play for a 32-75 team and see how your attitude is too. Like, that's the other thing. Yeah.
If you're not pissed, I don't think I want you. But
exactly.
To me, again, Nicky Lopez isn't going to be what makes the difference. My frustration here is, in 2019, you drafted Bobby Witt Jr. and told everybody this is a number 1 overall pick talent to play shortstop. You also had Adalberto Mondesi, who you would still dug in and decided you were going to be good. And in 2021, with Bobby Witt Jr. on the way and Adalberto Mondesi on the team, Nicky Lopez batted .300 with a .365 on base and a .370 slug. Not fantastic, but a .365 on base. Bloated batting average on balls in play, yes. It was not something that he was going to maintain.
Right.
But how far back was it going to come? He had a track record of having a high OBP with no power. I get it. The power, I don't think, is ever going to be there. Maybe Kevin Seitzer will get some from him because he does those kind of things. And I'm with you. I think he's kind of like a guru in how he does stuff. I absolutely could see that happening.
I don't think anything would make me happier and just laugh more than Nicky Lopez starting to hit bombs. That would be
I've stood next to Nicky Lopez. I don't think that's going to happen.
I think Seitzer's smart. I mean, obviously Kevin Seitzer himself. Like, the thing is, I think he could turn Nicky Lopez into a Kevin Seitzer-like player using that on-base ability to spray line drives around the park. And if you get him back to hitting 280 with doubles, I mean, my God, that's a very valuable player, right?
Yes, with doubles down each line, and a few that sneak through the gaps to the wall, but mostly down the line type doubles. Yes, I expect him to be better. And so, but my frustration is, again, I read off today the comps, his 26-year-old comps, and they were names like Bill Spires, Pat Lee Statch. I mean, there were some guys you're like,
Ramon Vasquez. These are classic like glue guys, you would call them, right?
Yeah,
Those guys,
yeah. Or
love these
border
guys who are
Yeah.
just Jim Gantner types. The guys who are just like, never a star, but always like batting seventh on a championship caliber team.
Yeah. And so you cannot tell me that there wasn't interest in him. And I asked JJ tonight, I said, listen, in 2021, when he put up those numbers, was there talk about trading him? I said, you had Mondesi, you had, Bobby Witt. And he's like, were there discussions with other teams? No, but did we have internal discussions like, hey, yes.
Which means the internal discussions were, we're not trading you. I mean,
and that's my frustration is I land on, you don't know what anybody is, right? Like you like, it would be easy to say, listen, those numbers are bloated and everybody knows it, but they don't know what he is. And we do. We've had him in our organization all these years. Like you can't, I don't understand how you can be, well, we don't have room on our 40. Again, I think I'm going to start hearing he was going to be DFA'd. Right. Well, that's why we moved him. It was our DFA.
You know what? If they had DFA'd him yesterday, they might have gotten more value than they did, because you DFA a guy, you can still trade him.
Yes.
And you're basically sending a signal to all 30 teams. We're not only are we open for business, this guy's getting moved.
Well,
So
and if you want to
get your bids in now.
Yes, and if you want to get him, maybe you don't have to trade for him and he gets to waivers, but maybe the team you're competing with is going to get him, right? And so you need to grab him so they don't get him.
I mean, that's the thing. Right? Do we know for a fact that every single team knew? Like Nick, I believe in my heart right now there is a team out there that's pissed off that they didn't know Nicky Lopez was available for a song, not even a chart topping song, a song that didn't hit the top 40. Like, and that or pissed off the Royals basically for not informing them that they could have had Nicky Lopez for so cheap. So yeah, you know what? If we're going to DFA him, and let's find out what you can get for real.
Yeah. So I by the way, how about the RIP for Pee Wee Herman, Paul Rubens, passed away today. I'll set that up there too real quick. Listen. It just, to me, this is yet another time where a player came along and they did not maximize his value. Like, there was a time where he absolutely could have been traded for more. And maybe, as you're pointing out right now, maybe that time was even now. They should have gotten more. That trade is baffling to me.
Right. The one thing I'll say, about all of what you're saying, absolutely true. 2 years. I mean, when we started this podcast, I remember one of the things we talked about last April was that the Royals basically had 3 quality major league shortstops that were going to start in their infield in Nicky Lopez, Bobby Witt, and Adalberto Mondesi. And, me and my, sunshines and daisies phase of whatever, delusion I was under that the Royals might actually be good, tried to frame it as a good thing and said this is going to be an incredible defensive infield, which it probably was for about 6 minutes till Adalberto Mondesi got hurt. But the point being is they had 3 shortstops. You don't, like, part of the problem with the Dayton Moore Royals was like they can't count to 2. They can't figure out, we can't play 2 shortstops. You can't play 2 catchers, but that didn't stop them from keeping MJ Melendez and Salvador Perez. How much value was leaked just by not accepting reality? Yeah, Nicky Lopez is a great player. You don't want to trade him. Bobby Witt's a great player. Adalberto Mondesi is a great player. You can't play all of them at their best position. Move one of them. Any of them. They didn't do that. Now, that's a Dayton Moore thing. But this is the frustration I have now. You can put all of that on Dayton Moore if you want. But if JJ was going to be different, if he was supposed to learn anything, if he was going to make a trade for a guy before he lost his value, when he still had value, I come back to the guy that might get traded in the next 24 hours. He might get traded while we're on the air for 30% of his value from the offseason. That's Scott Barlow. Like, you can forgive JJ for everything that they did or didn't do with Nicky Lopez then, but the fact that he didn't move Barlow in the offseason tells me he learned nothing from that experience, and that's troublesome. And we'll see. I mean, at this point, I'm not sure if they don't trade him. I'm not sure it's the wrong move, because what Barlow has done in the last couple of weeks has nuked so much of his value. You might be better off just holding on to him and hoping that he regains his value the rest of the season or next year at the deadline. But the point is, that was a missed opportunity too. They keep doing the same thing.
By the way, this one I hope is in jest. Royals trading Nicky after his best year would have been insane. They still had hopes of their pitching panning out at that point. No, wrong. You are in the get it right business. This is not. I explained this. I don't even remember what show it was on. It's professional baseball. It's not the have a legitimate reason for why you did it. It's professional baseball. Win or you're fired. Get it right or get lost. Like there's no in between. No, that is the whole. That is the most insane thing I've ever heard.
Well, again, just look at what other small market teams are doing. They'll never say, well, we can't trade a good player because our other players might pan out. No, they're trading their good players for other good players who are better players potentially, right? Like they're always making a bet that they can find better players from other teams, and they're right more often than not. Like there is nothing wrong. And again, especially when you have if you had traded Nicky Lopez, you have a better player in Bobby Witt at the same position. Like you're upgrading there, and you can trade him for value somewhere else. If you believed in Bobby Witt as much as the Royals obviously did, because they started him on opening day last year, of course you would trade Nicky Lopez.
Yeah, you can't watch the value of Adalberto Mondesi completely fold and not trade him. The value of Nicky Lopez completely fold and not trade him. You have got to move. And again, like I don't know how you cannot conclude that they're not sure about Bobby Witt Jr. when they keep both of those guys and Maikel Garcia. Well, we don't know if Maikel Garcia is any good, so we better keep Nicky Lopez. We don't know if Witt's any good, so we better keep Lopez and Mondesi. Like what? Like it just. I'm sorry, you can't. Well, we really believe in Michael Massey. Really? Then why did you keep 4 shortstops? Like you can't. At some point, it's gotta fit together, and just your reasoning for things. Here, how about this? They draft like on the Dumb and Dumber. So you saying there's a chance. A high school catcher. He's got pop. He's got a big arm, but other people say he's unathletic and doesn't move well behind the plate, and the history of drafting catchers is terrible. But you're going to go for the big swing in the upside. That's great. And then when they trade, they do the exact opposite. They trade for guys that they just know can at least exist in the big leagues for a few days, so they don't ever have to be like, well, you got nothing for him. Sure, we got this guy. He played 145 games in the big leagues. On teams that were terrible. Like if you draft for upside, why aren't you trading for all 17 and 18
exactly.
year old
You're drafting high risk, and you're trading for
low ceiling.
Right.
None.
Like that. There's no connective tissue between these philosophies. That's an excellent point. Like if you want to be high risk, go all in. Like you want to be upside, go upside. Go out and get guys who might be nothing, might not sniff the major leagues, but might be a star. Might even at least be a useful everyday guy as opposed to a reliever with 2 years left who if you magically fix him tomorrow is going to throw about 120 good innings for you before he's a free agent. Yip-de-doo.
Yeah. I mean, I just
and he's going to do it for a team that sucks. Like that's the other thing. It's like acknowledge the timetable, and this is where I don't know what kind of pressure they're in that front office, but like this has always been a hallmark going back to when Dayton Moore was hired, was just not acknowledging the concept of a success cycle, that there are times where you want to be good, there are times where not that you want to be bad, but that you don't care about your record now if it means winning more in the future. And I'm sorry, when you're on pace to now lose 114 games instead of 117. Congratulations on the sweep. When you're on pace to lose 114 games, you have no expectation of winning games that actually matter for a minimum of 3 years and realistically 4 to 5. So any wins you have in the next 2 to 3 years mean nothing. All right. That's a harsh reality, but that is the reality. And the problem is the Royals can't accept that reality. So they're chasing wins in 2024. Major League ready. You and I are talking about trading. We've had discussions about trading Bobby Witt, right? Aside, if you brought in, the Rays GM or the Dodgers GM or the Indian Guardians GM, any GM from an analytics team, I think the first thing they would do this offseason is put Bobby Witt out there, because all those games that superstar Bobby Witt's going to win you for the next 3 years mean nothing. But if you can get 4 top 100 prospects that are come up again, won't even be in the majors till 2025, get their feet wet in 2026, and then maybe win in 2027 when you actually win something. But the Royals, like you and I are having discussions of like differential equations and whether or not the Royal, and then Dayton work, JJ Piccolo gives a press conference where he says that 2 + 2 = 5. Like we're not, I don't even know how I can respond to that. Like Major League Ready, you're 32-75. Your whole team is a monument to what happens when you chase Major League Ready year after year after year. The Royals have been prioritizing closeness to the majors over upside since they started this rebuilding project in 2018 to build this roster. And this roster is, the reality is this roster is not just not good enough, not remotely good enough. You've got to burn it down and start over. And trading Nicky Lopez for Taylor Hearn is not burning it down and starting over.
Sarah says you have a guy like Nicky, Bobby coming down the pipe, promising pitching in 21. They thought they were close. We know now they weren't, but I can make sense of those moves in hindsight. You're not putting Adalberto Mondesi and Michael Garcia in there, and Michael Massey. Like you're in the get it right business, not the have a plausible excuse. There is no excuse. If we're at a point, what is the extra $1 million? They could have had Taylor Hearn and Nicky Lopez. It would have just cost them $1 million over the next 2.5 months or August, 2 months, right? It would cost. That's what it was. Is that money going to be used for a billboard campaign to get the stadium done? And are you really is that how close the margins are? Like I can't be sold on this. And the idea that you had promising pitching, erroneous. No, we've said from the get-go, you draft 5 guys in the first sandwich, and second round. If you get a middle, or if you get 1 top starter, great, 1 fifth starter, and 1 reliever, you have beat the odds. So they would beat the odds. So if you looked at those 5 pitchers and anybody else in there and you said, we've got a full rotation, you're a jackass and fired for that. Because there's no history of anybody being that successful in a draft.
I think the point, if the point of that comment is that 2 years ago, it looked like the Royals might actually be competitive sooner, then you know what? I agree with that, because I was stupid enough to think they'd be competitive sooner as well. But the point is, it doesn't matter. Like the fact that the Royals might have actually been good in 2022 doesn't preclude trading Nicky Lopez. That's the whole point of the Tampa Bay Rays strategy. If you've got excess talent at a position, you could trade Nicky Lopez for excess, or for not excess, for needed talent at a different position. Especially if you think Nicky Lopez is not going to be as good in the future, which the Royals probably, if they know their players as well as they think they should have said, you know what, Nicky's is a really valuable guy, but a 300 average is probably the absolute peak of his ability, and he's probably much more likely to come down from that than to improve upon that. So we should trade while his stock is high. But the point is, the quality of the team is not does not preclude you from trading good players. Good teams trade good players all the time. The Royals, that's the problem. The Royals, even when they're bad, they don't trade good players. They trade players at the very end of their contracts when they have no choice. They never trade good players, and so they never get good players, future good players, in return.
And this absolutely doesn't matter, but it makes sense now. No, it doesn't, because if that's what they were doing, they wouldn't have 4 catchers. I mean, come on. Like, you've got to be – what? How is this – it does not make sense. It never did make sense. Had Adalberto Mondesi been sent to center field, okay. Now we're starting to put some pieces in places. They never did that. They ran his value into the ground and then got nothing for him, as it turns out. I can't even remember the reliever's name, who came from Boston with an 8 ERA and always hurt.
Josh Taylor.
Josh Taylor.
This is the second time this season, this year, that the Royals have traded an everyday shortstop for a left-handed reliever who doesn't have a recent history of success. Taylor had missed all of last season with injury. Taylor Hearn's never had success. Fine.
Yeah.
Adalberto Mondesi was hurt and it still hasn't played. But the point is, like, a rebuilding team trading everyday players for relievers, that's the exact opposite of what you should be doing. Like, literally, if the Royals in their exact position right now had Taylor Hearn and had just traded him for Nicky Lopez, it would have made more sense. I mean, because we'd give okay, Nicky Lopez isn't a useful guy, but you know what? Let's give him a chance for the next 2 months and see if he can be somebody. Because Taylor Hearn's a washed up reliever who's got a 5-something ERA in the major leagues over 5 seasons. Yeah, sure. I'll take a lot. I'd rather take I mean, to me, Nicky Lopez is a better lottery ticket than Taylor Hearn.
Yeah, listen, and John's, said, like, you both make good points about trading Bobby Witt Jr. Listen, we're not on a mission to trade Bobby Witt Jr. We have talked about the idea of exploring that. What could you get for him? What can you get for Brady Singer? The point is, if it's going to take you until the 27 season to even begin to think you're going to be good, right? Because they're not better now than when they were losing 100 games. They're going to lose more games this year than they ever have. So why would anybody think they are closer now than they were 3 years ago? And to finish my dunk on Saris about this somehow if it made sense, then why didn't they move Michael Massey and Michael Garcia for a proven outfielder? If they thought they had promising pitching and it was going to be Witt and Lopez, then you move Michael Massey and you move Michael Garcia for the one veteran. You put them into the middle of a deal, along with MJ Melendez to play the role of Will Myers for your James Shields to captain the staff. In front of the young guys, we have the big dog in front. Or you put them together to go get the big bat in the middle of the lineup to take the pressure off the young guys. That's my point. The point here is they've done neither. They half-ass it all the time. If that's what they thought, that they're almost there, and I think they did, because they signed Carlos Santana. They traded for what's his name for the Red Sox that signed with the White Sox, the outfielder Benintendi. They looked like that's what they were. Yes, we're ready to go. And the center fielder, Michael Taylor, they went out and got them. But did they do anything else? Did they then flip Massey and flip Garcia, who are starting to get onto the prospect range, to go add to that team to finish that team off? No. Because what if we're wrong? That's the point. And so right now, what are they doing? Well, we're not going to move Brady Singer because we think he's pretty good. Again, if you're not going to win till 27, he's gone. He's a free agent after 26. You're not going to have him anyway. So what are you doing? My point is, they have to call their shot on what year it's going to be to make all the right moves. You can't just keep sitting around and hoping that one day you wake up and you've got a 26-man roster of good players. You have to target it, because you're going to have to move young guys to finish it off. Or you're going to have to be so good at drafting, of which they have been nothing of, that you just keep inundating your system. Their system sucks. Their big league team sucks. And they've done nothing along the way to either go for it or to play for the future.
Right. And
all they do is just keep falling down the hill.
I completely agree. And this is why it's never sat well with me, this idea that they are secretly tanking or doing a soft tank this year, because tanking requires a commitment,
a plan.
Well, a plan before and a commitment. The Royals seem unable to commit to a plan. I don't know what the plan is, because is it trying to rebuild or trying to win? They've been trying to have their cake and eat it too for years. But like this year, even when the evidence is overwhelming that you have to start over, right? That you've got 3 or 4 core pieces here, but everything else is just basically a holding bag. It's just there until you find something better. Even now, they're still not willing to commit. There's a few other things I want to point out. One is, like, I just think it's kind of bitterly hysterical that the Royals just traded for a left-handed reliever with command issues, like literally 2 weeks after they released Amir Garrett, who was a lefty with command issues who actually had a good ERA at least. I mean, I think his ERA as a Royal over a season and a half was barely just over 4. I mean, I don't know what precipitated that. It almost seemed to be a non-baseball related decision. Yeah, 4.39 ERA and 70 innings with the Royals over a year and a half. And that's fine. He was going to be a free agent, but it just you release one guy, then you trade Nicky Lopez to get a worse version of Amir Garrett. But the other thing is the Royals. This is a bet. The Royals are saying that they can fix Taylor Hearn because Taylor Hearn throws hard, has command issues, and I mean, I guess it's a good thing that the Royals are actually targeting pitchers who throw hard now. That seemed to be something that they were not prioritizing before. But you know, they so far the track record of them doing this. I mean, it's just been this first year hasn't been great. You remember the Royals actually earlier this year did the opposite. They traded an actual prospect, a marginal prospect probably, but an 18-year-old, so it could have been anything, Junior Marin, for a reliever who throws hard but has command issues, James MacArthur. You may remember that name. James MacArthur pitched in Omaha, got promoted to the major leagues, but apparently on his way out the clubhouse in Omaha, he said, I shall return to Omaha because he came up, he threw 1 inning, had a 63 ERA and got sent back down. Like they do not have a great track record so far. Cole Reagans is another guy, a better pitcher, but like throws really hard, has command issues, still having command issues in Omaha. Maybe you'll overcome them, but like they have not shown an ability yet to get guys who don't throw strikes to throw strikes. Like we're not even talking about like the Frank Mazzucatos of the world, but like the Royals really have an issue with getting guys to throw strikes in the minor leagues. And they don't seem like the right organization to fix. Even if Taylor Hearn could be fixed, it doesn't seem like he's in the right organization to do that now. So this is, just another log on the fire, another reason to just question what exactly was the point of this trade. And again, Nicky Lopez was never going to bring a lot. It's not how much this trade hurts the Royals. It's what this trade exposes about the way the Royals operate. That has to be very concerning to any Royals fan.
And here's another thing. If you're wanting guys that are major league ready to add to your core, trade for Max Scherzer. Now, I understand Max Scherzer would not accept a trade, right, to the Royals. But you get my point. I mean, if that's where you think you are, then why aren't you getting? There are big league guys available for prospects. Go trade for them. Because they're not going to sign with you as free agents. Like they're not like, 112 losses. I'm signing with this team. Forget about an extra year and an extra $1 million per. That's not getting it done. You're not adding to this team with anything other than the leftovers. And I believe that they had to go an extra year just to get Jordan Lyles. Okay. Because nobody else, you pointed out, all the rumors were it was 1-year deals everywhere. So to get Jordan Lyles to come to Kansas City, you had to give him an extra year. How much are you going to have to overpay to get somebody who's appreciably different? So if that's what you think you need, don't give a guy a choice. Trade for somebody. And you're not, and that's not going on now either.
Well, I would say I'd say don't give them any ideas, Soren, because like they're in no position to do that. But you know what the reality is? They don't have enough talent in the farm system right now to do that anyway. Like what exactly can they offer in a trade? Maybe you can get one guy like that. Great. The 32-75 team added one mid-tier starting pitcher. Like, oh, great, everything's fixed now. Like, this is unfortunate. This is too big a project for anything like that to work.
I'm on team blow it up. Like I've seen enough. There's not enough here, and what is here will not be controllable for you by the time you are ready. They are too far away. I am team blow it up. I'm just saying some of the things like Saris was saying, people talking about like, well, if that's your plan, then put that plan in place. I can at least be like, okay, I see what you're doing. I can't see what you're doing. Like, because you're not doing anything. You literally are just spinning your wheels.
Yeah, I mean that's what this is. So, let me see.
Go to the other trade.
Let me look at my notes real quick here. I think we covered everything. I do have a theory that I want to run by you. This is one last thing about the trade that might explain not only the Nicky Lopez trade, but actually a lot of transactions in baseball over the last several years.
Let me reiterate for those that have come on late. Neither one of us thinks Nicky Lopez was going to the Hall of Fame, right? It's more where he is the symptom of the bigger what appears to be disease. Just to be clear for some of the people that have popped in late. Go ahead. Let me hear your theory.
It's a terrifying theory. I hope I'm wrong, but I just want to throw it out there. Is it possible that Alex Anthopoulos, the general manager of the Atlanta Braves, has developed the powers of mind control? All right, I know it's an extraordinary theory, but let me throw the facts at you. This is a man who, in the short, 5 or 6 years now that he's been running the Atlanta Braves, got Ronald Acuna to sign a very long-term contract shortly after he made the major leagues that made him underpaid almost immediately. Then did the same thing with Ozzie Albies. Also got Austin Riley to sign a 10-year contract. He has a team option for 2033. All these guys, by the way, have team options at the end of their deal. Traded for Matt Olson from Oakland, and even before Matt Olson had stepped on the field as an Atlanta Brave, got him to sign an 8-year contract with a team option. Michael Harris came up last year, an exciting rookie, 2 months into his rookie season, long-term contract. Spencer Strider, rookie, long-term contract. Is there anybody else I'm missing here? Basically anybody worth signing on that team to a long-term deal. If you look at their contract page on Baseball Reference, it's crazy. Like, it literally goes beyond the screen because they have guys who are signed through 2032. They have 6 different players they have options on at least through 2029. And now he's making the Royals take a guy he picked up off waiver 6 days ago and giving them an actual valuable player. I'm not saying that Alex Anthopoulos has psionic powers. I'm just saying that if you're ever in a room with him, do not stare directly into his eyes. If he asks you to look into a flame or into a crystal that's twirling, do not comply. And for God's sake, if he pulls a pocket watch out, run for your life.
Yeah. Listen, they're doing a lot of things right there. I mean, there's no way. But I mean, you have to have good players come up.
Well, they have hitters come up, and then Kevin Seitzer makes them not fall flat on their face like every Royals prospect who needs 1,500 plate appearances apparently before. We're celebrating now because it only took Bobby Witt about 700 before he's turned it on, and I'm excited. In another podcast we will talk more about Bobby Witt and the changes he's made and the progress he's made. But like what Bobby Witt did in July, if he were a Brave, he would have done that last May probably. So it's just. They've got a good system there, which, again, the fact that they wanted Nicky Lopez, the Atlanta Braves, tells me there was probably a market for him.
Yeah.
You probably could have had multiple suitors, maybe even a minor bidding war.
If the best team in baseball thinks he can crack their 26.
Exactly. They're going to the playoffs. They're getting him specifically to have him for the playoffs.
Jeff went right to where I was thinking when you're going through it. Are now the Royals the Braves farm system like the Kansas City A's were for the Yankees? Oh, maybe. I mean, it's a little tougher to do what went on back in those days, but there's an element of that. The Cuas deal. Let's have a little bit of optimism. Yep. This deal looks a lot better.
This is exactly what the Royals should be doing. I mean, it's not, again, not a earth-shattering trade, but I'm impressed in the sense that, Jose Cuas is a great story. From FedEx delivery guy to major league pitcher, was, a position player in college and converted. I love side armors. Like, I was rooting for the guy. He hasn't been that good. It's just, his ERA isn't bad, but he has allowed, I think, over half of the inherited runners that he has inherited this year to score. Like, his ERA looks good because all the runs score are charged to the pitcher that he's come in for. And that's his job as kind of a side armor who's supposed to get ground balls. He's supposed to come in with men on base and clean them up with double plays. And instead, he's cleaning up the bases by letting them score. So if they hadn't traded him, I would have been advocating for him to be demoted to Omaha. So the fact that they were able to trade him, because here's a reliever. It's funny because we talk about Carlos Hernandez being like, trade for a reliever with 5 years of club control. In theory, at least, Jose Cuas, was a rookie last year. He's going to be under club control for 5 more seasons. I just don't know that he's going to be good enough for that to matter. So the fact that they were able to trade him, and he's not a spring chicken. I mean, as a converted guy, he's 29 years old, get a 24-year-old and a hitter. Again, trading relievers for position players, that's always the move to make. Relievers, you can find them, you can make them, you can sign a FedEx delivery guy and turn him into a major league reliever. Position players are a little rare. So I love the idea behind this trade. Velasquez maybe nothing, but there's definitely major league power here. He's got at least one tool that I like. And for Jose Cuas,
and he's shown the ability to get on base, at least at the minor league level.
Yeah. I mean, and he's played center field. He's probably a corner outfielder, but at least the guy's played center means, he won't be he's not Edward Olivares.
We hope.
I put nothing past him. He's a Royal now, so we'll see. But I'm hopeful that he won't be such a defensive liability that it wipes out his offensive value.
Yeah, and I want to go to because Tony said this. Apparently, the Royals are great at drafting relievers. Everybody is. Right? Every team has 3 or 4 guys with 12 Ks per 9. Like that, HDH was kind of a phenomenon, and everybody took note and said, "Oh, we can do this." Right? Like we just take instead of spending all this time screwing around with guys till they're 27 years old in the minor leagues trying to make them starters, give them a couple of years, then put them into the bullpen, because we're going to need a lot of them, and we'll fire them through. And just the industry of baseball, the baseball little, all the different, pitching lab, home pitching labs, guys are better now. They're preparing on their own before they ever get to high school or college. The caliber of pitching is just better out there. So yes, I just, that's not even a success. I mean, that's mandatory. That's the old Chris.
And that's
Rock.
why when you have one and there's a market for him, you trade him right away. That's like if you had one rule as an organization, which is anytime we have a reliever who has an excellent season, we immediately trade him that winter. If that was the only rule you followed, you would win on trades.
Yes,
hugely in the long run. Because you're going to teams like in the short term, there's always a team that needs a reliever right now because they're going for the playoffs and they can't get out of the 6th inning or whatever. But in the long run, look, Scott Barlow was like the toast of the town 6 months ago. Now he's barely holding on to the 9th inning role in Kansas City. Guys lose it all the time. Wade Davis was the best reliever in the world, and 3 years later was washed up. So if you trade those guys, that's why, but trading for Taylor Hearn is because the best case scenario is he turns into a commodity that you should be able to develop on your own.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. It's, I developing a reliever, what I was going to say was, it's like the Chris Rock thing. Like, the guy who says, "Well, I didn't go to jail." Well, you're not supposed to go to jail. What do you want, a cookie? Like, oh, well, they develop relievers. Well, yes. I mean, somebody should back-ass their way to the big leagues at some point. And I'm not ripping somebody said I'm dunking on the chat. I'm not the chat. I'm agreeing. Like, but they do have some relievers, but everybody has relievers, right? Like that's the thing. They're all over the place. They're moving right and left everywhere around the Royals. Better ones than they are moving.
And that's why this trading a reliever for an outfielder is great. I mean, this, it may not work, but like the worst case scenario is you traded Jose Cuas for nothing. Okay, then you'll find the next Jose Cuas.
Chris is right. This is why you trade Carlos Hernandez yesterday. Absolutely. And Bart was at the same point. He's like, he's got to be traded. Yes, because they've got control. People will get excited about him. They will take him. They will give you something. And if you can't develop more relievers, you're going to be fired anyway. Right?
Yeah.
That's coming. If you're like, well, I don't know if we'll be able to find another Barlow, you're fired.
Well, and where do they find Barlow? They found him on the waiver wire. The Dodgers literally let him go as a 6-year minor league free agent. He was a start. Like most of these relievers was a fail. He was a starter in AAA and just wasn't quite good enough. They let him go. It was a really shrewd pickup by the Royals. Like the Dodgers have such a loaded 40-man roster that like they didn't have room for a guy who's maybe still a prospect. We have to try him in the bullpen. Boom. You got a couple great years out of him, but you didn't cash him in. You wasted him on a bad team, just like the Royals wasted so many other guys on bad teams. And here we are. So kudos to them for at least trading a reliever for a position player this time around. Carlos Hernandez is an interesting case because he's that rare guy, the combination of the fact you're getting 5 years of club control and the fact that he's so electric that teams might see him as either in that special class of closer, like the elite closer type who can throw 100, or that they look at him and dream, maybe we can move him back to the rotation, that he might have a value on the trade market above and beyond your typical reliever. Like you could actually get a top 100 prospect for Carlos Hernandez. I believe that.
Yeah.
Will they do that? Well, I doubt it, but there's rumors that they're at least considering it. There's a lot of rumors out there. They're considering a lot of things. Maybe they'll pick up Salvador Perez's entire contract and trade him. You know, maybe they'll trade Bobby Witt. But like, I'm not holding my breath on any of this stuff. So I just want them to stop trading for guys that they could have picked up on waivers 6 days ago. That's all I'm asking right now.
Yeah, no doubt. So who gets dealt? Who would you bet on? Who should and who would you bet on? Carlos Hernandez should. Willie?
Should. I don't think so. I think it's going to be, I mean, I just think that the amount of value they're going to ask for too much for it. That's my guess. They might surprise me in that they'll get too much, or they'll get a good amount and they'll accept that. But like you said, they love their guys, and this is a guy they've been touting him since he was a starter at A-ball, and he never found success until this year. It just strikes me that having finally gotten what they wanted from him, he's finally proven them right. It just seems to me emotionally it's gonna be hard for them to let go of that. So I'm going to say no.
Bart says no chance. Hernandez or
Singer is interesting. I mean, I wanted to save Singer until after the deadline, but I mean, Singer, his last start, 10 strikeouts in 5. Like, if you just start his season from early June, quietly he's had his numbers from like early June on are not that dissimilar to last year.
Jim Bowden said they're shopping him. I asked JJ Piccolo about Brady Singer, and he said it would take a lot to get Brady Singer.
And let me put it this way. I think it should take a lot to get him because I actually think, I know you've talked about this, either fix him or trade him. There's a chance they fixed him. And let's not discount the fact that he pitched like 3 innings in March because he was with the World Baseball Classic team. That probably wasn't the best thing for him. In the long run, it doesn't matter. The Royals suck either way this year. But if you write off the first 6 weeks as just his arm wasn't in shape, then his season looks a lot better. The big thing is, shockingly, he's throwing his changeup more. And that's leading to success. We'll talk about that more next time, maybe if he's still a Royal. But the point is, I think, the Royals should value him highly, but there's a chance that teams out there see him as, oh, this guy's actually a number 3 starter who's healthy and fairly durable and has club control for 3 years after this one? At least 2. I think it might actually be 3. I'll check that real quick. Yeah, 3 years after this year. Like that's a dude who, again, should command at least a top 100 prospect and probably something else of interest as well. Like that, the average major league starters have a ton of value. We've seen guys, I mean, Lance Lynn got traded, right? So there's value out there for a guy like Brady Singer. So I wouldn't trade him unless they get a lot, but there is a chance some team will give them a very good offer for him. I don't think he gets moved, but it would not shock me.
Anybody else?
Well, I mean, Barlow's the one that's like, yeah, he might get moved. It'll be. I have a feeling he'll get traded. It'll be for a prospect, but not the 12th best prospect in the organization. And we'll both be like, they could have done so much better had they done this a while ago. But frankly, if there is a level of prospect that is offered to them where I would just say like, no thanks, we'll just hold on to him. But I'm gonna guess he'll get moved. Beyond that,
Yarbrough, Chris asks.
Sorry, Yarbrough to me is the one. Yarbrough's the one to me. I mean, Yarbrough is the guy that they thought Jordan Lyles was going to be. Like 1 year, $3 million contract. That's exactly the kind of guy you bring in at that contract level. Who, by the way, is not a free agent this year. He doesn't qualify for agency. So it's essentially a 1 year deal with an option. Better than a 2 year deal because he could have cut him if he didn't pitch well. He's got an option for next year. He's a league average starter, left-handed, throws strikes. Yeah, I think Yarbrough is probably the first guy to put on the list to get traded. The wild card to me would be someone like Olivares. I could see a team that wants, especially now that the Royals just picked up this Velasquez. Again, you can't play 7 outfielders like you got to, if you want to play them, maybe it's time to make a move, open up some space. And Olivares on a team that just uses them to pinch hit or DH has some value. So if they get something for him, I think that's the other guy that I would put out there. Beyond that, unless the Royals want to go, crazy and trade one of their really young guys, Austin Cox or something like that. I mean, that guy. I mean, they traded Jose Cuas. I didn't see that one coming. I'll give them credit for that. But I would say Yarbrough and Olivares are probably the most likely. The other real wild card would be Freddie Fermin. You want to be ambitious, Freddie Fermin. If a team thinks that this guy could be more than a backup catcher, like he has shown, and he's in the prime of his career and he's under club control for 5 years, it would take a lot to get him. But I'd take an offer. I'd let teams know. You didn't move MJ Melendez when he's a catcher, but because you had Salvador Perez. If you're not going to move Salvador Perez, trade Freddie Fermin.
I think Salvador Perez to the Marlins and eating as much money as it takes to get the best.
That would be the home run. That would be the home run to me, you and me. But you know what? The average Royals fan's going to, howl, and the Royals do take that into account maybe more than they should.
I want to point this one out before we get out of here, and that's chances. Blake Mitchell update: 0 for 3 with a walk and a strikeout in his debut in rookie ball. And Blake Mitchell's the first-round pick, number 8 overall. This past draft, I will give them credit.
It's over. He's a bust.
Well, I know.
Shut it down.
But he's at least playing.
Yes, he's playing.
Right? We've had conversations with Jerry Manuel and he's. I was worried he wouldn't play the whole time, and we're like, what are they doing? Rebuilding his swing already? Like, he's at least playing. And somebody had asked, is it like, can he go to A or high A? No, not a high school guy would not. This is where he should start.
Rookie ball's fine. It's fine. And I wasn't too worried. The Royals usually, for whatever reason, they're a little more deliberate with getting guys on the field. But it was like a week later. It's fine. He's got a month now to prove himself. One game, I don't care. But yes, we will both be watching his box scores very closely for a kid in rookie ball. So no pressure. And let's wish him a happy birthday because he turns 19 in 3 days. So
right. So yeah, as we know, he's that's only a few days ahead of Hearn turning 29. That happens, I think, on August 30th. By the way, and I just want to double check this before I believe. The best prospect in baseball right now that's actually still down in the minor leagues. I want to double check. Yeah, Jackson Holiday started in rookie ball last year after being the number 1 overall pick. After 22 at-bats, he was hitting 409, 576, and 591, and they sent him to A-ball. If Mitchell does that, which I don't think he will,
it's a very good sign if a high school draftee gets promoted to A-ball in his draft season. That is a very unusual. But Jackson Holiday was an unusual prospect, and again, the Orioles doing everything right. I mean, a road diverged in the woods, and the Royals took the path less traveled. The Orioles took the path less traveled. The Royals took whichever path led into the darkness 5 years ago, and they're doing everything right. So maybe the Royals could learn a thing or two from them. So we'll see what happens with Blake Mitchell. But if he turns out half as good as Jackson Holiday, I'll be thrilled.
Yeah. We are proudly brought to you by GAN Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City metro area. The one place where you can get a nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems are problems no more. They've been solving them since 1994. You can be in a lot better spot. They do everything. When you have one person handling all of it, you're going to save a lot of money. And they're always there to stand behind every project that they do. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warranty. You can find them online right now at ganasphalt.com. That's ganasphalt.com. One contractor, all things parking lot. It's GAN Asphalt and Concrete. For the good doctor, Dr. Rany Jazayerli. Yes.
One thing I just want to point out, we will probably be coming back at you Thursday night this week.
Yeah. Assuming they do something.
Right. Assuming they do something, and some travel issues, we may have to move it up anyway. But hopefully, in the next 18 hours, they will make another trade or two, and so we'll be back at you sooner to talk about that. So look forward to that. The Chiefs don't play Monday night and Thursday night back to back, but we'll do it. We'll come back on short rest and rant some more, I guess.
Yes. For Rany Jazayerli, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on Kaufman Corner.